Hello. I know you probably miss me. I missed me. Honestly, I've been doing a couple of these a day for the last few months, and I feel like I was missing a cornerstone of my life. We haven't done one of these in 2.5 days, but that's just because, well, I was paying for my sins. I was getting through one of the worst bouts of food poisoning ever blessed upon mankind, and this is the first time in 2.5 days I've been able to sit in this chair and talk to you for 15 minutes or so without something flying out of either end of me like a fire hose. So that is a huge positive. Very, very happy that that is now the case. We will see if we are able to actually make it through this entire video. I have had some eggs and toast this morning, and that has managed to stay down. If you're wondering what I ate, Satan. I ate the devil himself. That is the only explanation for what has turned my insides inside out. And as a result, I am in a terrible mood. And because I'm in a terrible mood, I want to talk about something that has pissed me the hell off, and I just haven't worked up the energy to actually be able. And I mean, like, let's be honest. Do we do super intense research on this channel? No, I'm talking to you like some dude would talk to you when you're sitting at the lunch table at work, right? But I do want to at least read a little bit about what I'm talking about. Sometimes I'm going to get stuff wrong. We're going to do our absolute best to make ssure that we're not missing any major things here. This was going to take me a little bit of reading to kind of understand it. But this is something that, it just pisses me the fuck off. It makes no sense to me. And I'm in a terrible mood because I haven't been able to swallow solid food for 2 days. So MLS, I'm coming for you. All right. And if you're thinking, what could MLS have possibly done that was so stupid? I got you. I got you right here. I know exactly what they could have done that was so stupid. Now, you might not have heard of this. It's called the U.S. Open Cup. Okay, the U.S. Open Cup is essentially the FA Cup in the United States. It's existed continuously since 1914, or quasi-continuously. It's the oldest football tournament, the oldest soccer tournament in the United States. It is, it's not like the United States is blessed with eons of footballing history, right? There's no dude in 1879 that Netflix is making a TV show about. Okay, what was that show even called? The Beautiful Game? The English Game. It was called the English Game. Right, okay. Well, the English Game isn't being made about the U.S., but the U.S. Open Cup is very old, right? And MLS has done a lot of great things, okay? One, being able to maintain a professional outdoor league in the United States, kind of important when it comes to developing the U.S. national team and whatever, but it also misses on a lot of stuff. And you've heard me talk about that here in other places before. They miss on a ton of stuff. They miss on the idea that promotion and relegation is nowhere near in their future. They miss on the idea that they need to convert people that are already soccer fans instead of trying to turn non-soccer, like non-football fans into football fans, right? Because soccer's already the fourth most popular sport in the United States, right? They're just watching the Premier League and the Bundesliga and La Liga and Serie A, right? Instead of the MLS, right? MLS is nowhere near the most popular league in this country, the one I'm sitting in right now. I'm just glad to be in a chair instead of on a toilet. So now MLS took a very strong turn into that stupidity direction that it's super capable of going in, as I just covered, and pulled almost all of the senior national teams out of the U.S. Open Cup. Almost all of them. Pulled them out of the U.S. Open Cup. Now, I'm going to come at you right off the top. Before you get into any of the details of this, it looks stupid, right? This looks like a blatant, flagrant money grab. It looks like MLS was bothered that the U.S. Open Cup is not something that MLS directly controls, right? And so that was kind of, that was angering them, right? This just feels like a scummy decision. This feels like deciding to hold your Super Cup in Saudi Arabia, where there is no logical explanation for doing it other than, well, money. And like, we're gonna money. But also, and this is incredibly important, and I can't stress this enough, money, right? But then when you get into the weeds, it just really doesn't get better. So the basic explanation that Don Garber, who is the commissioner of MLS, right? Because in the United States, we've got these commissioners, right? This guy that is appointed by the owners to run the league, essentially. He is the person that makes this decision, ultimately. And the statements that have come out about this, they anger me, right? Because I'm going to tell you something that I want. Before we get into this statement, I want the United States to have some sort of legitimate footballing heritage at some point, somewhere. I want it to not feel like a joke all the fucking time. I want it to feel like, the football and stuff that I actually watch. And there's so many parts about MLS that freaking do. I know, because on the main Zealand channel, we have made a video where we went to the, we embedded ourselves essentially with like MLS ultras, or what MLS would consider ultras, right? And it was amazing. It was super cool, and the Bada culture, and we were hanging out in bodegas, and like all of that was awesome. And some of those parts are there. And then there's this part of MLS. It's almost like this, American conscience or whatever that just is determined to pull the US in a completely different direction, to pull MLS in a completely different direction from all of the things that I like about soccer, that I like about football, that I want to be involved in the game. But I'm not going to make you wait to hear these comments anymore. So, okay, we'll start here. MLS Commissioner Don Garber has previously criticized the competition as a poor reflection on what it is that we're trying to do at the highest level. Okay, if we're starting that as like an opening statement, I don't even know what the hell that means. Are you saying that because these teams that aren't in MLS are playing in the U.S. Open Cup, that's a poor reflection on, that's a poor reflection on the game? That's not like what does the U.S., what does any sports fan love more than an underdog story? Like, I know you're the commissioner of MLS, but MLS teams making deep runs in the U.S. Open Cup is not why the U.S. Open Cup exists. And if you want to grow the game, right, rising tide's going to raise all boats here. If you want more people to become more invested in U.S. soccer, which is going to help MLS, that's who it would help the most by far. If that rising tide raises all boats here, then you need some Cinderella runs. You need a team from the lower divisions of the U.S. that goes on a crazy run. But no, you're saying this because you realize that everybody loves a Cinderella, right? March Madness, if you've ever heard of March Madness, the college basketball tournament in the U.S., the whole damn thing is predicated on every year there's one team that nobody expects. This year it was NC State that goes on this giant freaking winning streak. Right? And that's the Cinderella. And everybody gets behind them. I'm not tuning into the Final Four tonight to watch fucking UConn. All right? I'm tuning in to watch NC State. Now, UConn's fun to watch because they're way more talented, but I'm watching for NC State because they've got a big, tall, fat center who is funny and talented and wasn't good 3 weeks ago, but now they are a Cinderella. Shout out to DJ Burns. You're still in better shape than I am. I didn't mean it. But and like if you started to have that, I mean, FA Cup runs. I remember Lincoln City getting to whatever it was, the fourth round of the FA Cup a few years ago. People get behind that. It brings attention to the other levels of the game. And I have a freaking feeling that's why they're doing this. On the surface, you can say like, well, it's just not a great reflection of the game. I don't think these other teams are that good. No, your whole goal is to concentrate the entire structure of U.S. soccer inside of something called MLS, which is never going to, unless MLS is about to create 120 teams to blanket the United States, which probably still wouldn't do it because the United States in geographical size and 75% of the population wise is the size of freaking Europe, right? Like you need a lot of clubs if you're going to cover the whole US. And they're not going to do that either, right? And MLS is never going to create enough clubs to viably be able to cover all the media markets in the US, to viably provide an opportunity to play and develop players to every young player in the MLS or in MLS. So you're going to need different leagues, but that's why they're doing this. This first sentence, now that I've danced around it a little bit, it's painfully obvious that they don't want to shine a spotlight on any team that's not an MLS. Which, you know what I hate? I hate that there is like an actual business explanation that makes sense for why they're doing this. And I wish that Don Garber and MLS could see beyond that. I wish they could look at that and go, I realize it's probably a smart business decision to try and freeze out every club that doesn't pay $500 million to be in MLS and actually try to just elevate the game, right? Because there is a large number of clubs in the United States that play in the USL, that play in the National Premier Soccer League, I think it's called, that play all these different leagues that kind of exist and hold these clubs, some of which are quite historic, from the one from my hometown called the Tampa Bay Rowdies that have existed for a long time. Right? There's a lot of different clubs like that. And MLS is trying to suck all any oxygen left out of that room. This is the equivalent of the Premier League trying to kill non-league soccer, right? Like that is what MLS is trying to do, but because MLS is a closed system, it's something it feels like it has the ability to do, because let's not act like the Premier League wouldn't at least try to do something like that if it was a closed system, but they can't, right? Because there'd be riots in the streets. But in the US, people just don't care enough, right? It's the fourth most popular sport. And then even that even in that situation, I think MLS is probably the third or fourth most popular league in the United States in terms of what you're watching, right? I'm watching more Premier League games. I'm watching no, MLS probably second, but Bundesliga and La Liga are not too far behind, especially when you count how many extended highlights I'm watching, because those games kind of happen in the middle of streams. Sometimes I can't watch them, but I try to keep up on all that stuff. But let's keep reading this. I appreciate the enthusiasm about it, the US Open Cup, but we need to get better with the US Open Cup. It's just not the proper reflection of what soccer in America at the professional level needs to be. Who the hell? I mean, like, why? Why is it not why is it not a reflection of what America needs? Are you offended by the fact are you offended by the fact that amateur and semi-professional clubs can show up and actually hang with MLS clubs? Because if that's the case, then the problem's probably that the league's not good enough, right? That the talent level of the players is not good enough. And you know what a contributing factor to that might be is that there isn't a large network of clubs identifying and developing players in the United States, right? It's a bit of a pot shot. If you're one of the 30 MLS clubs, then you're only able to draw from a certain area, and there's just these giant holes in the net that's collecting talent for the United States because there's all these other clubs that aren't being supported at all that exist all over the country, and now you're offended that they can hang with your club. Like it's not a proper reflection of what soccer in America at the professional level needs to be. I know you're the commissioner of MLS, but who died and made you God, right? Like, I just disagree. I completely disagree with that statement. And MLS is also trying to bury this. They are trying to not have anybody talk about this. They don't want anybody to talk about this. I don't give a shit. It needs to be talked about. It's important because they're going to strangle the US Open Cup, and they are determined to make sure that every time somebody kicks a ball in the US, MLS makes money from it. Don Garber with the money signs in his eyes, and somebody kicks the ball and somebody puts a check in his bank account, man. The goal here is to grow soccer in the United States, right? That has to be the goal. And we have not achieved that goal, right? This is the equivalent of YouTube is kind of the same game. Okay. Like, if I wanted to, I could cash out. I could start doing a bunch of betting ads, right? I could start kind of milking you guys dry for every cent you got left that you want to give me and then cash out and leave. I don't want to do that. Right? Because I want to grow more. Like, if you're going to be entirely honest, because if you grow more, then ideally, I don't have to milk you guys dry to live a very comfortable life and be able to make all the YouTube videos that we want to make, traveling all over the world, doing traveling soccer content, right? Because you got to have that long-term vision that if you were able to grow and grow and grow and grow, YouTube took a deficit for this is an even better example than the first one I was using. YouTube took a deficit for a decade to gain market share and gain market share and gain market share and gain market share. And now guess what? How much money is YouTube worth? Right? Like, that you have to have that long-term vision to grow, and they're just trying to kill. They're just killing half the garden here. You're killing over half the garden because you don't think it's a proper reflection of what soccer in America needs at the professional level. That doesn't make any sense. Not only do I disagree with that, it does not make any sense because freaking teams from not MLS have made the semifinals and the finals recently. So if you're trying to say that these other teams are bad, they're not, right? They are hanging. They are competitive. It's not like every time we get to the round of 16, it's just MLS teams. There are plenty of other USL teams hanging. Then they said, and this is a sporting news article, by the way, but there's a lot of different articles about this. So when asked about his critical comments to the competition from back in May, Garber's response suggested there could be a pathway back to MLS participation in the future, but was vague about what kind of progress the league is hoping for in the meantime. That sounds right. I feel like you're just leaving the door open because you want people to not get mad at you, but you're never actually going to rejoin. He said, I made those comments because I believe we're going to have our professional teams competing in a tournament that is the oldest tournament of its type. The oldest tournament of its type. We all need to embrace it, from our federation to our respective leagues, and give it the profile and give it the support that it needs. Okay, here's a great example of embracing it. How about you don't pull the teams out of the tournament? Right? Like, you're telling everybody, the federation and all of the leagues involved, to embrace the US Open Cup. What are you doing? The exact fucking opposite of that. You're pulling the teams out of the tournament. Do people just not understand? Do they not understand the concept of irony? Do they not understand? I feel like We've gone so far into the PR world that people just say words that they think sound good without even acknowledging the fact that what he is asking for the federation and respective leagues to do to give it the profile and the support that it needs is the exact opposite that he's doing. He's trying to bury the competition and give it none of the support it needs, but he also acknowledges the fact that he is aware it's the oldest tournament of its type and feigns this idea that he wishes that it was better. No, you don't. You just created something called the Leagues Cup, where U.S. teams play against Mexican teams in this giant midseason tournament. This is the first thing Messi was playing in when he got over here, right? This giant midseason tournament. Right, and between all of the teams, or most of the teams in the Mexican League, most of the teams in the U.S., huge cup tournament in the middle of the season, and then you can the actual cup tournament that existed for over 100 years and helps develop the game in the U.S. more. And they also, earlier when they were talking about pulling teams out of U.S. Open Cup, they were complaining about fixture congestion. Right? And it's like, well, you created the fixture congestion. You just manufactured another tournament that you like more because you make all the money off of it. But Garber continues. If we can't do that, then we all should meet together and decide that there needs to be a new plan. I will say that I'm pleased that our competition group and U.S. Soccer have been working together since that last U.S. Soccer board meeting and have been working on ways to evolve the U.S. Open Cup so that it can be more valuable to everybody. That process is ongoing. Bullshit. There's no way. You don't mean that. Prove it. Please prove it to me by putting MLS teams back in the tournament. Look, Don Garber, I respect you. I thank you for guiding MLS through a period where it almost folded. You are not close to solely responsible, but partly responsible for the success of MLS, for the survival of MLS, and therefore the growth of the U.S. men's national team, the growth of soccer in the United States. For that, I am thankful. This is stupid. This doesn't make any sense. You're just bullying the U.S. Soccer Federation into letting you leave. And the karma snapped back quick because you know what? MLS did allow its reserve teams to play. It's MLS Next Pro teams to play in the U.S. Open Cup. And they did play in the U.S. Open Cup. And then they lost to a team named after a burrito restaurant. That's right. Amateur team El Farolito in the opening round of the U.S. Open Cup defeated the Portland Timbers second team 2-1. El Farolito is a burrito restaurant. 1993, it won the U.S. Open Cup, right? It did. And still at the bar of the restaurant is the trophy from their 1993 MLS Open Cup. It says that in this freaking article, which is, yes, awesome. And that's the type of story that will grow football in the United States. That's the type of story that I can get behind. It's why I'm telling you about it right now. But that combined with the cosmic justice of Don Garber insisting that the quality of the tournament is too low, that it's just not something that's this great spectacle. You know, it's this waste of time, not a good representation of football. I can't find a better representation of football than an amateur club owned by a dude that owns a burrito restaurant in California beating Portland Timbers 2 in the opening round. That's what this sport's all about, and the United States is going to lose that, if it hasn't already, by pulling its teams out of the U.S. Open Cup. It is. It doesn't make any sense. It sucks. It's the oldest trophy to play for in the United States, and I hope El Farolito wins it again, because clearly these MLS teams, particularly MLS second teams, are not nearly as good as they think they are, at least most of them, right? Because you just lost to a burrito stand, all right? But like, isn't that a great story? Why can't we have more of that? Please, Don, please. Please, Don. Oh, up the Farolitos.